Alright YouTube, it's time for the Occult video 124, Life Force, or Chi, this sort of ancient notion that there's a life force. It depends on, if you ask some people, they say, well yeah, there's a life force inherent in all living things. You ask others, it's more like almost what you'd get from Star Wars or something. It's a force and energy that permeates all of existence. It can actually be, in the minds of maybe the more mystic Easterners, manipulated actually for psychic purposes and so forth. You'd see that some Tai Chi master able to throw somebody in the opposite direction just by touching them and so forth. You have sort of the Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, the martial arts side of it. It's an interesting thing. The martial arts are definitely twain in all of their forms, whether it's Tai Chi, which is more slowed down, or something else. It is twain with the concept of energy and balance. Sometimes I think that the notions are, it's physical principles, the physical principle of balance in a more mundane sense, applied to the spiritual or something along those lines, as far as the martial arts go, when they're more twain with mysticism. I happen to be generally a believer in the concept of an encompassing force around all things, because I have reason to believe that I've tapped into that force, in an anecdotal sense. I don't ask you to believe that. I think it has something to do with the appearance of entities we may not explain, strange phenomena, and so forth. I think that, though, the best way to quantify it is science as yet unexplained and possibly never to be explained. That is, that there are forces we can't fully quantify. It's still technically up in the air as to what specifically causes gravity to function, which a lot of people don't even understand. They know that gravity is real. It's not a theory. It does exist. But what exactly is causing it? Are we talking about rotation and magnetism? Are we talking about gravitons? Or exactly what is causing that phenomena is still technically open for debate. There are more acceptable explanations than others. But perhaps it's like this EM drive that they keep talking about. Have they thought of the possibility that whatever they're doing with the EM drive isn't really violating physics, it's operating upon some sort of particle they haven't yet fully quantified and don't know is there? Have they thought of such a thing? The answer is, it appears that they have not deduced that that's a possibility at this time. I'm willing to remain open-minded towards it. Maybe gravitons do exist. Maybe they're creating a gravitational field and don't even quite understand how they're doing so. As far as Qi goes, in sort of the Chinese sense, the idea is literally an encompassing force. It's within us. It's within inanimate objects as well. It's sort of a universal creative energy. It's similar in a way to the idea of an all-permeating God within Western, more Abrahamic paths. That is, a Christian would tell you, God is everywhere. You say, oh, so God is literally permeating my existence. I've used this somewhat more humorous idea of, well, God is in your turd or something like that, to sort of bash organized religion at times, or Allah is in your penis or something like that. And that would be an affirmative and objectively true thing if that concept is actually real. It would be similar with Qi, or some of these similar more Eastern concepts. They simply relegate it to a living but disembodied sort of spiritual energy, as opposed to, let's say, an intelligent being, a god, an actual figure that can take on a definitive physical form at times, according to the Bible, or the Quran, and so forth. So I'm generally a believer in the basic concept. I don't have a problem with it. It's not quite as superstitious if you're assuming that it is a spiritual statement made about more mundane physical phenomena. Literally, for instance, Tai Chi master. Excellent balance, years of training in all of these different gestures and movements allows them to throw somebody who's 5 times their weight, just a solid mountain of muscle. You know, the Tai Chi master is like old, wizzled up, and you know, elderly, and yet can take a 600-pound man charging straight towards them, and with very little movement cause them to fly off in the other direction, just by sort of redirecting their momentum or something. What I think is that, or what might be a rational explanation for this concept and sort of its historical lineage, is that because it was impossible to understand the average person exactly how the fuck was this happening, because it It doesn't make sense. Here's this little old man throwing somebody around like a rag doll or something like that. How can it happen? Is that they were witnessing the physical phenomenon. They simply embodied it in a spiritual concept. The idea of chi. Therefore, this master wasn't simply using physical means, but also supernatural, in a way, means, or supranatural means to actually accomplish these feats. It's the idea, for instance, within Tai Chi. I studied Tai Chi for many years. One of the concepts is full versus empty. When you're balancing in certain positions, more or less weight is placed in each foot. Your body, your posture is held in different ways to carry weight along the different parts of the body. If you're really good at it, you can make it look, if you're in combat, literally as a feint, you can make it look like you're putting all of your weight where you're not actually putting it, and what appears empty is actually full, and you can trip up your enemy by these means. For instance, two people are sparring, and you make it look like all of your weight is on your back leg. You're actually balancing yourself forward. They try to sweep what they consider to be the full leg. You just lift it up, and then you hammer them in the back of the head with a fucking mallet or something like that. And it is possible to do such things. I'm certainly not a Tai Chi master. I studied it long enough to get the form down, the long form, the basic sort of stretches and exercises. I can manipulate the weight in my feet. I have good balance as a result of studying this for so long. I'm not claiming I can throw somebody across the room with the greatest of ease, although I have seen people that probably can. If they had a mind to do so. It's kind of scary. You got some extreme, like a vegan, ectomorphic, total hippie-looking woman who studied Tai Chi for 30 years. She'd probably beat your ass red with very little effort. And it's always interesting to think about such a thing. For the average person, though, they can't comprehend how such a thing can actually happen, so they've boiled it down to a spiritual metaphor. That doesn't mean, though, that the concept itself of chi is necessarily wrong. You can think about it as talking about weight and balance and motion and sort of these perturbations of moving bodies, render it to the strictly physical. But that doesn't mean that it necessarily is. Maybe there is something more to it. Maybe that Tai Chi master really does have some sort of magnificent psychic power or something like that. Who fucking knows? Have they even properly tested it under laboratory conditions? I'm not aware of any specific tests that have been done on such a thing. I don't believe in things like sort of the stage magic side of the psychic arts, like channeling and stuff like that. Mesmerism is fine. Then you've got the channeling and the seances and stuff that's obvious bunk. As far as chi is concerned, though, it's a little more up in the air for me. I suppose there could be something more generally spiritual to it, not just in a physical sense. But even if we're just regarding physical phenomena, still interesting phenomena indeed. Certainly useful. If you study Tai Chi or any of these related, certainly any martial art, it certainly gives you the ability to defend yourself more ably. It'll give you the mental resolve, certainly the physical capabilities in various ways. And I think people should study the martial arts more. We do need a more martial society. Not martial in the sense of, we kick the ass of anyone who attempts to trot on us even in the slightest way. But just in the sense of being able to defend yourself is much more important. It's like owning a gun. Hopefully you never have to actually use it. Hopefully the only time you're firing it is at a range, or maybe a tin can or something like that. Maybe a squirrel. I got hungry. I wanted to make some chili or something like that. Hopefully you never have to use it on another human being, but it's certainly good to know how to do so. To be capable of doing so should the need arise. The same is true of the martial arts. You shouldn't be looking for a fight. Virtually all martial arts schools of any renown, they excoriate the notion of offensive use of the martial arts. It would say, this is for defense only. In fact, we're going to fucking kick you out and defame you openly if you ever use it to attack somebody. To the point at which if a person is well trained enough, they're registering themselves as a deadly weapon, so that even just attacking somebody in a topical manner could be considered a more lethal type of assault than just simple assault or something like that. It was attempted manslaughter because, you're a third-degree black belt or something like that. And so it's an interesting concept, chi, or this life force. And there are various takes on it. The pagans believed in the same thing. If you listen to the Bach Saga, and I encourage that you do, Just look it up on YouTube. There's a lot of material. Sort of this Odin-looking character from the 80s up on through till he died, unfortunately, a few years ago. Talks about the linguistic sagas and the concept of, I believe he termed it Strolar, or something like that, as in a life force. It came from photosynthetic material, actually, and was the original food source for mankind. That back then people were essentially vegan. They were drinking sap, essentially, or something along those lines. I'm not sure how much I believe in that specific rendition of human history, but it's interesting nonetheless, and some of the archaeological tie-ins are really how I got involved with listening to that material. And that has the same thing. It's the same concept of sort of an encompassing or useful life force in a general notion. That's about all. Peace out.